All right, let's call to order today, Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, OCPC Finance Committee meeting. I will begin the meeting by reading the accessibility statement and Title VI non-discrimination statement. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print materials are available upon advance request. If you would like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833,
Hello.
extension 202. The notice of non-discrimination rights and protections to beneficiaries with regard to federal Title VI non-discrimination protections and the state non-discrimination protection is posted in this meeting room and is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website. Please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202 for more information. All right. So did you want to begin a roll call?
Yes, that would. If I could just make Charlie a co-host for me for 1 minute while I am doing. Thank you. The roll call. Hi, Frank. So Frank Staffier from the town of Avon, present.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I wasn't sure if I was in.
We're in, Frank, and we're just doing the roll call. So town of
right.
Avon, Frank Staffier.
Present.
Thank you. Stephen Santasonio.
Present.
Doug Silvestri.
Present.
Christine Joy.
Present.
Alicia Siciliano. By the way, she's the alternate for the town of Pembroke. Sydney Barrow.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
And Val Massard.
Hi.
Thank you, Val. And just for staff who are present, Charlie Kilmer.
Present.
Brenda Robeson. Present. Megan Fournier. And she's here.
Present.
And then we have consultant Bob Moran.
Present.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Mary. I don't think I've ever seen this many people in a finance committee meeting. It's thrilling, isn't it?
You want your phone?
All right, next call of action is the minutes for our last meeting. I believe they were October 27th. Did everybody get a chance to go over them, look them over?
It looked good to me, Doug. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
There's a second.
Second,
Thank you. All right, we'll take a roll call.
On the motion, Doug Silvestri,
Accept.
Stephen Santasonio,
Accept.
Sydney Marrow, Ian
accept.
Joy,
Accept.
Alicia Siciliano. He's moving around on me here, sorry. Val Massard.
Accept.
I think that is everyone.
Awesome. So I guess we'll just move right into financials with Brenda.
Yep, if you give me 1 second, I'll be able to pull them up.
Yeah, of course.
Feel like it's been a while since I did this, so sorry about taking a little bit of time.
It's all right.
Okay, can you make it a little bit bigger?
Right there.
There we go. That's a little better. Okay. All right. So here we go. Statement of expenditures report shows total expenses for the month of $196,055.10. Moving to the cash position report, showing income for the month of $82,680.45. Disbursements for the month were $128,854.80. The total cash available at month's end was $1,038,032.49. OPEB account had a gain of $29,604.71, bringing the ending balance in the OPEB account to $915,709.08. Moving to the budget.
And just a note on that, Brenda, was that the month previous, we had a large decrease. So the market continues
I
to
don't
be
think it lasted
volatile.
very long. I don't think that decrease lasted very long at all. It's kind of cool.
Oh, don't hold your breath.
I know, for real. Okay, moving on to the budget resources report. Total receipts for the month of $82,680.45, bringing the total cumulative receipts in FY '22 to $435,052.04. Moving on to the AAA report. Pass-through cumulative billing total recorded was $1,487,038. Pass-through cumulative receipts total recorded was $669,335. Ombudsman and admin funds cumulative billings recorded are $288,392. Cumulative receipts recorded total were $91,318. Voluntary transportation account fund October beginning balance was $183,910.33. Total payments to volunteers in October were $643.89. Donations received in October were a total of $90. October ending balance in the fund was $183,356.44. Moving to the ROM October 2021 statement and activity. The balance at the beginning of the month was $171,468.70. October receipts were $5,850, bringing the total ROM FY '22 receipts to $30,142. October expenses were $4,033.56, bringing the total ROM expenses in FY '22 to $31,006.07. The ending balance in October being $177,777.17. Look at all those sevens. Okay, moving on to the budget spin down report. Okay, total FY '22 expenditures through the end of October were $656,167. Our spent to date percentage rate at the end of October was 27.71%. The ideal percentage in the fourth month of the fiscal year would be 33.33%. So we continue on a positive trend showing a 5.62% surplus at the end of October. Lastly, the list of October's combined accounts payable. And these are just the accounts payables combined that went out in the month of October. Mary, do you want me to just jump right to a quick audit report and bank account report here? Okay. Audit report. Markham will be on site for field work all day on Monday, December 8th. I think I put 8th, but it might be the 6th. Whatever next Monday's date is, he's going to be in all day. And I don't really anticipate that he will need more than a day. He's been sending lots of information. I've pulled lots of all of the things that he needs to physically look at are ready for him. So I don't anticipate he will need more than a day. So, so that's all good. Bank account report. On Northeastern, I still need to get Sandra's signature on the page 2 of the affidavit document because she was missing page 2 when she came in and did signatures. So I will get that over to her. Christine and Doug have already signed. Christine, I think I still need to get a copy of your current driver's license. If you could send that over to me. That's the only thing I'm missing from you. That's the report on Northeastern. So that one's still a little bit on hold, but we should get that one switched over pretty soon. Rockland accounts are all set. The SCU credit union accounts have been successfully closed and all funds have been moved into the Rockland regular checking account. And the amounts that were the balances that were moved. The union share savings 12-month certificate account was at $104,676.52. The credit union money market account was $106,831.50. So that account is closed and all set, and it's safely in the Rockland account. Harbor One, I need to get a status report from either Lee or Sandra. I know Sandra's not here. Lee is here. Is Lee here?
Harbor, actually, no, the Harbor One account, Brenda, is actually, it's in my court. So Lee.
Oh, okay.
Hartman,
Sorry.
so Lee is looking to schedule that both Christine, Sandra, myself, and Lee get together in Plymouth at the Harbor One there and make it nice and easy
Okay.
to all get there. So he, for those who may not know, he is, because of the change of things going on in Plymouth, that his role is being a bit escalated. So, but he said he'll work with us.
Okay. And that's all I have. That's the end of the bank report.
The thing I would tell you is that maybe we could talk offline to Christine and to Sandra about if they're going to be there tomorrow night to seize the moment, to see them tomorrow to get the things that you
Take
need.
the photo with me and grab Sandra and get her to sign. Okay,
Perfect.
do that.
I-
Thank you.
I just had one question, Brenda.
Okay.
How often throughout the year do you redistribute some of these funds for your operating budget? Because I noticed some of them are like, 60 or 70% already to the year and some are zero.
Well,
So-
I actually, because we have so much wiggle room with our miscellaneous account, I've sort of been adjusting from month to month to stay more in line with, because that miscellaneous is really literally just that. It's miscellaneous funds
Yeah.
where we need it. And
Yeah.
there's lots in that miscellaneous account. So
Right.
I really have been sort of adjusting the numbers and trying to stay more in line with a balanced budget each month, quite honestly, since we've added this budget report as part of the finance meetings. That's what I've been doing. But the original budget is always sitting there the original numbers that were voted in are always sitting there on the same report on that page 1.
And Doug, if I could weigh in a little bit too, there were some unknowns too that when we were starting this. So I knew that we needed to hire an executive assistant. That part was kind of wiggling around, but there's also been some funds that came in from AAA, many more funds than we thought. So adjusting for that has been, there have been some things that have been charged up to the AAA account that we thought that we were going to have as part of our operating. So I think Brenda's system of, each month, but, it may be helpful. That miscellaneous, I know, because we've always talked about it, there's been like the other pieces that we're looking to move from to soft phones instead of having hardline phones for our staff and or cell phones. So those are still being worked on. It's once we get past the expo, it's one of the things that Megan's going to be charged with is getting us a phone system. So my phone is in two offices away. Like I have no phone on my desk, and many staff don't even have extensions. So we're trying to get past that mindset, and some of the costs are related, and that number should be at least solidified for the finance committee by January, which is now, then that will be 7 months into our fiscal year, right? That ends on June 30th. So, we're being probably extra conservative on that.
And the other
Staff
thing,
here, and Frank staff here, I still haven't bought my cell phone yet, but I promise you I will. So
Oh, don't tell them that.
the other
I
thing
hear you.
is I could leave that money sitting at I could leave the budget sitting at sort of an unbalanced and showing a surplus, but I'd much rather leave it in the miscellaneous category and move it around as I need.
I would too. Yeah, it's a lot better this way anyways.
Yeah.
It's easier to read.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Doug, through you, can I ask a question to Brenda?
Yeah.
We were I think we had several months of outstanding payments from the state. Have those come in yet?
No,
Or,
they have
oh,
not.
good Lord.
Some of
Okay.
it, some of it has come in. We got about, I can't remember now what the amount was that was received, but they are still like $1 million behind. So, you
One
know,
of- So one of the things, if I could answer Christine on that through the chair as well and through Brenda, we literally, there was an email that it's, a lot of it is through the AAA, the funds. David did send an email at my request to the state. The state's response was, yeah, there's some things that are beyond my control. We are meeting internally this week just to strategize about what our next steps are. You know, if I said, if there were ARPA funds to help, they should then be hiring people to help move these funds along. So I want to be able to kind of strategize and be respectful of the, you know, of the probably overwhelmed staff with all the extra funds that have come into the state, but that doesn't help us at all with trying to make payments. And then Brenda's, you know, already the discussion that we had on our, just for everybody's purposes, Charlie, Brendan, I meet every Monday morning at 8:15 to talk about finances. How about that for a morning? But it always is starting our week off to see where those funds are and grant funds. And so that's what's kind of came from Monday's meeting was, let's get David on the call. David came on the call. We talked about strategy. David sent the email out. And so it's a struggle. And I think that's way, again, when, you know, a good purpose for tomorrow night's expo is that we connect with some of our legislators who are going to be there, and not necessarily throwing, you know, the executive office under the bus at all, anyone under the bus, but it's just like, what do we do? Like, we can't just forever be taking money out of an account so we can pay some other accounts that we have to, that we're due. So it's been frustrating. Our strategy from internal is we're moving forward. We're not just sitting on it saying, oh, well, our strategy is to really kind of think about what next we need to do, and to, you know, solicit the council members for their strategy too.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions with the financials that were presented?
I have one, if you don't mind.
Go, take it away, Frank.
Ed, Frank?
Are you talking to me?
Yep,
Yes.
you can go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did little Mary say that she hadn't gotten her phone yet?
I'm
Will
getting it
somebody
this.
take her by the hand? Will somebody take her by the hand and show her where to go and tell her to get a phone before we have to hook up cans with string?
Frank, I have Megan Fournier, who is on this phone call. It is a priority for her to help me get that replaced, but thank you. I should have never said that. I'm sorry, but yes,
I
Megan.
told you.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Thank you, Frank.
It's been flagged.
Bob, I've made Bob Moran, I've made you co-host. If you want to share your screen, do you want to share the documents? Is that what you want to do?
Sure, actually, that'll work just as
Do we,
well.
do we still have to do a
Oh, a
And
vote.
roll call vote on the minutes and the
Yes,
we
finance report.
and
Thank you,
yeah.
Charles.
So is there a motion to accept the financial reports that were presented to us today by Brenda?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, do a roll call?
On the motion,
On
Doug Silvestri,
Accept.
Christine Joy,
Accept.
Stephen Santisonio,
Accept.
Frank Staffier,
Except,
Alicia Siciliano Perry, Sydney Marrow,
Except,
and Valerie Massard.
Awesome. Thank you,
Mary,
man.
did we get both the minutes and the financials? Did we do the roll call for both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so I guess we'll give the floor to Mr. Moran.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam President, everyone that I haven't met. Nice to meet you. So as you know, I was tasked with summarizing OPEB and what it means. And, it's funny. First of all, thank you all for trusting me to do it. It was definitely a learning experience. I learned a lot about OPEB and about what it takes to do consulting work and some of that. I'm very appreciative for all of that. And also, I thought I might begin with the questions that are at the back of this. And maybe even the fundamental question of, what is OPEB? I think folks here are pretty familiar with it. It's basically non-pension post-employment benefits. But as Brenda and Charlie and Mary and I looked into this, there were a few questions that emerged that I think we needed clarity on, and that's what I tried to do in the very last page of this report. Do we have to fund OPEB? Not really, but it is considered a best practice. And other sponsors, plan sponsors do pay invoices as they come up, but it's not generally considered the best way to address this liability. There have been some recent changes in GASB regulations and accounting rules that increased the liability by about $186,000 total. So this report reflects that. The auditing statements reflect it. When will we be fully funded? Probably another 10 to 12 years, depending whether we fund it more aggressively, depending on the performance of the investments, depending on how folks retire, what health care they and their spouses choose. There's a bunch of variables that are involved with it. Can we withdraw funds from the OPEB trust? Only for post-employment benefits, non-pension post-employment benefits. And can we change the way these monies are invested? Yes, we can. We'll talk a little bit about that when we talk around the fund manager and the fiduciary. So we've thus far gone with a balanced approach and haven't really provided any direction to the current fiduciary to the contrary. So with that, just to cover basically what's here in the report, we've kind of talked about the context here, the introduction, the objective. I did come up with what I would call an executive summary. And I don't need to go through all the history and context of it, but the real key recommendation from this is that the council develop a formal investment policy. There's an example of one, which actually I can show. Whoops. It's a little tricky to find it maneuvering through here. I have a few documents. Oh, you know what? This is it. This is, can folks see that I had changed the document? Now it reads.
We can't see anything, Bob.
You cannot see it.
It's a solid
Screen
screen.
sharing.
No.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to.
You might need to change your screen share if you chose just one document and just change it to your full screen.
Okay. Let me go down. Let me stop share and share screen. One participant can share at a time, or multiple participants can share simultaneously. I'm not sure. Let me share screen. Bear with me, folks, as I do this. Okay, can you see it? Something different?
And it's a PCOT and OCPC comparison.
Okay, good. That actually wasn't what I wanted to share, but this is the document I wanted to share as an example of another RPA that has taken the step of developing an investment policy. So let me jump back to the report. That's not it either. Bear with me as I jump around here a little bit. Did I close it? Maybe I closed it. All right, let me open it back up. I did not mean to close it. Okay, can folks see this?
Yeah. Yes.
Table of contents, okay. How much time should I plan to take with this, Mary?
Let me just unmute
You're
myself.
on mute.
So let me just give a more global, the idea is that we are not going, there is not going to be a request for a vote today. I would say run through your presentation, Bob, and then if there's supplementary, we go back to that.
Okay.
And I think that if there's any board members that have any questions along the way, to either raise their hand and or to put it in the chat.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. So just to continue, we talked a little bit about the executive summary. One recommendation was develop an investment policy. And a second recommendation is to consider an annual review of the OPEB accounts, review the status of the accounts, whether the accounts are being invested consistent with the investment policy, and potentially even reconsider the fund manager or fiduciary. It's required to do it every 2 years per GASB regulations, but it's suggested as a best practice to do it annually. So I did include in this document a bunch of definitions. So I viewed this document as basically a reference document that folks can refer to looking back on this, and for folks who may not have familiarity with OPEB. So a couple of the definitions we've already talked about: a fiduciary being somebody who's put in charge of funds for another entity. Fund manager, that can be the same individual or same entity. ASOP, you may hear that in this presentation. It's actuarial standards of practice, sort of a industry standard. Disclosure of OPEB liability. It was a few years ago that accounting rules changed and required these liabilities to be reported on the balance sheet. A lot of organizations were very kind of caught short on that because I don't think they understood the extent of the liability. So it caused problems for a lot of balance sheets, at least initially. And everything we've heard from talking with both of the fiduciaries we considered is that OCPC has done a fairly good job of preparing for this liability. We do have about $900,000 already in the account, and it's not up to the level of what we would call fully funded yet, but we have made a lot more progress. I think we're 60-some% funded, and there are organizations that are 20% or less funded, including some of our cities and towns. So good job for OCPC. And we initially funded it in 2012, before we had a regular finance committee. We voted at one of the board meetings to begin funding it. We started with 120,000, and we've added to it over time, usually about $50,000 or $60,000, and then I think last year it was in the $30,000 range. Odyssey Advisors is an actuary that has validated what the total liability is. The fund that we're talking about is the OPEB Irrevocable Trust, which is actually, I think it's called the custody account on the Rockland Trust statement. And then the investment policy we talked a little bit about already. So what is the total liability? Recently, Odyssey was estimated at $1.586 million with about 480 unfunded. I mean, and that number changes, it literally changes daily because it is a stock, it's an equities investment that moves up and down with markets. And the actual cost will change because of the factors we talked about. Age and demographics of the workforce, who's retiring, morbidity, spousal choices and participation, and the performance of the investments. So Odyssey is estimating, well, they did have an increase in the liability because of some of the accounting changes that are talked about here. They also noted that based on an updated ASOP standard, they had to increase the liability, reduce the discount rate, increase the liability by, that had a big impact, about $140,000. So speaking specifically to the fund that set up the irrevocable trust, its performance thus far has been about 7.6% since the fund's inception. Now, that seems maybe a little bit lower than Standard & Poor's or a lot of the market indices, but it's important to note that we provided direction to Rockland Trust, a fairly simple direction, invest in balanced funds, don't lose the money. And that's basically what they did. However, you can see that, other investment vehicles have earned significantly higher rates of return than 7 or 8%. So then I was tasked with evaluating the two potential fiduciaries. One is the new player in this, and that's Plymouth County OPEB Trust, which is a fund. It's a separate entity set up through the treasurer's office. And, Doug, I know you had mentioned you wanted a sort of a SWOT analysis. And I think there are some strengths with Plymouth County that the Rockland Trust doesn't have, but there's a couple of things that are of a little bit of a concern. So I'll just go down what we have here. Obviously, they're connected to policymakers and lawmakers. They're backed by some very large and reputable organizations that have a lot of experience with municipal and county governments. They have a document library that's ready to be implemented. They're already at the point where they're dispersing OPEB funds for certain clients. And with the disbursement of funds, you can disperse them before the liability is fully funded, but you probably don't want to. You'd rather get the fund to where it's fully funded, because if you reduce the fund that's in there, you're actually adding to the future liability. So you're sort of working against yourself. But there are funds that are at the point where they have received disbursements through PCOT and PARS and US Bank, which are the organizations behind them. Importantly, the fees are lower and the rate of return, looking back, has been fairly significantly higher. I mean, it's 13.5% over the last 5 years. So something to consider. I mean, if you're strictly looking at this on basis of returns and fees, it's a pretty strong case for PCOT. The potential weaknesses that I sense are that, it's a strength and it's a weakness being connected into the government entities, municipal, county, and state government. It's probably a low potential, but it could be a high impact if you had state finances that were dramatically affected by a downturn, a depression, or a dramatic turn of events. If that's the case, I think a lot of funds and a lot of entities are in trouble, but I did want to highlight that. Interestingly, as we considered opportunities with PCOT, obviously an additional relationship with the Treasurer's Office improves our visibility, our access to policymakers. But it also happens that PCOT overlaps many of our communities. And to the extent that they're also struggling with OPEB funding, we could be not only, a resource about OPEB funding, we could be another client that works with them. It's just an interesting overlap with our geography overlapping Plymouth County. And then the threat, and I don't know if this is really that significant, but if there were to be a change in the Treasurer's Office, which there will be, I mean, elections happen and there will necessarily be change, but I can't see a scenario where that is going to dramatically impact PCOT's operations. There is a board of board of investment managers. I forget the term, but there is a board of trustees or a board of managers that is made up of many of the towns that are towns and government entities that are members of PCOT, and they are essentially running the organization, with the Treasurer's Office involved. So again, fairly low likelihood, but could be impacted by something that happened in the political world. Okay, so the other entity is, of course, Rockland Trust, their investment management group. Obviously, we've had a longstanding positive relationship with them. They provide other banking services for us already. They have other government accounts. They too have a signature-ready document library and a strong connection with, a particular organization, Bright Rock Financial. So they do have access to multiple funds. Obviously, the weakness would be the rate of return, significantly lower than what PCOT has experienced. And again, we could direct them to go with a more aggressive growth fund. But even that has averaged closer to 9% versus the 13% through PCOT. The fee structure is a little higher. They have a sort of a sliding fee scale, and as it's blended, they call it, we're about 0.6%. And that, as a percentage, will go down if the fund goes over $1 million, I think, but it's still higher than the 0.39 of PCOT. Opportunities, we could clarify for Rockland Trust that we want them to be a little more aggressive, but I've already addressed the concern that even the more aggressive fund choices are still significantly lower returns. There's a fairly significant threat, as I see it too, and that is that they're in the process of merging. It might have even happened in this past week. They're merging with East Boston Savings Bank. In terms of capital or market capitalization, Rockland Trust is about twice the size of East Boston Savings Bank. So they are the acquirer. But bank merger can present changes in leadership, services, branches, representatives. The corollary of that is, and we did address this with Rockland Trust directly. They said, look, East Boston Savings Bank doesn't even have an investment management organization. So it's positive for us, it's profitable. We think that it's an opportunity that will probably get developed more in the merged bank, which will remain as named as Rockland Trust. So Rockland Trust is keeping the name, and there is no investment management arm of the acquired bank, East Boston. Whoops. We also talked with both of the fiduciary, the candidates, about the Massachusetts OPEB trust. And it's an option, but it felt a little problematic in that we would be essentially forfeiting some control. You had to accept a set of provisions within one of the Mass General laws that included, essentially relinquishing control over the investment choices. You're allowing them to make the choices for you. And the consensus around leadership and staff and frankly of both of the fiduciaries was that, you guys have done better than the average mix of customers that will be in that with you. So they may have different set of needs and a different perspective. And that would force you to give up some control that it looks like you've done fine with. So we didn't really consider Massachusetts OPEB trust as a possibility. So I do see the primary recommendation of this exercise as the council developing an investment policy, which is a statement similar to what Serped had. There are towns that are out there. I don't know, Christine, does your town have an investment policy statement, or have they developed anything like that yet?
We have a whole financial policy, which includes investment. So it is a component of our entire financial policy.
Yep. So the investment policy is sort of the guiding principles. And then the funding policy is the piece that where the final amount to be paid into the fund each year is determined. And I think that at this point, that's done through consultation with the director and the fiscal officer and the finance committee. And I wasn't really involved with that process too much for purposes of this report, but so, in creating a investment policy and implementing it in the form of a funding policy would be the recommendation of this. And then I also talked about a potential for an annual review of OPEB. That would give you maybe a little more transparency to how the fund is doing. I would caution you, if you do that, to not panic when you have a down year, because this is certainly a very long-term liability. You're talking about liabilities out into the 2050s. And that allows you, in fact, it probably warrants that you don't lose sight of the long-term nature of the liability. You may, by being a little more aggressive, have down years, but you also risk keeping pace with and beating inflation. So, so to kind of wrap it up, these are two good fiduciaries. I really can't offer an opinion other than to say, if you're going strictly on rate of return, it's an obvious choice, but hopefully the analysis that was done here will help you with the decision, which I will take no position on. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions. Oh, I should also mention, a couple of folks weren't on when I talked about this in the beginning. The other deliverable for this will be a drive with all the documents that were used as the basis for this. In fact, I can show you a couple of them. This would be the actual statement from Rockland Trust showing the balance of $873,000. It literally changes every day because it is in equities. It is an equities document. This is the statement with the backup on all the funds that are involved. I think it's about 8 or 9 pages. But the other one that I did want to show was this one. Whoops, let me get the display correct. Yeah, this was a document that was provided by Pequot, and it's a pretty direct comparison of the returns that we received. And I think the Finance Committee has seen this. This would have been in the February or March presentation by Pequot. And it's funny too, this number, this return, rate of return, will change depending on what period you're looking back. Like obviously, here we are, the end of November. This number is probably a little different, but so I think that's all I really had to share. And again, I'll open it for any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. That was actually really good. It was pretty easy to. I mean, what we're gonna do now is just do. Me and Mary had talked about doing just a feedback portion. So you know, if I'm a council member that has no idea what this is, you know, is this the type of presentation you know they understand? And I mean, I think it's great. You give the definitions, the recommendations. The SWOT analysis was pretty good. Although I would love to see if there are any examples of those election consequences you talk about. That's pretty interesting, you know. But no, I mean, I'll open the floor to anybody. But I thought it was a really good presentation. Thank you very much. I know it's been busy, man, for you. So thank you.
Doug, can I ask a question? It's Christine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bob, the only thing I thought was great too. It was excellent. It was easy to read and understand. I think that the investment policy really is key in us developing some financial policies, because they will actually, I think, guide us in making a decision on which way we want to go with this. But I would be curious to know, just looking back the last 5 years, what our OPEB account would look like if we were with Pequot versus where we are now with Rockland Trust. I just would be curious as to what that number would be.
Maybe Brenda could comment on that. If we took, I mean, I think it would be fairly reasonably easy to take the balance as of 5 years ago and then, you know, lay over it the rate of return that Pequot has had. It's a little bit dangerous to do that, because then you start getting into the, oh, what if I, you know, why didn't we do that then? Or, you know, it's like looking at your 401k and geez, if I was in Bitcoin, you know, I'd be retired or whatever. But it may be a little dangerous to do that. I don't know. Maybe it would be instructive. Brenda, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, probably everything that you just said. It's, you know, going backwards, and I think it would be a bit of an undertaking, but I can certainly take on trying to get that information for you, Christine.
You know, Brenda, maybe even Tom O'Brien could do it. If you just provided him with the numbers, he would know what the actual or estimated returns were for the year. Maybe he could just put a number. I mean, I'm just wondering, you know, just what it would have looked like if we'd be over $1 million, which I think we probably would, maybe even closer to 1.2 million. Just curious. If it doesn't come together, that's fine. I just was wondering, you know,
I understand
what it would look like.
I understand.
I feel like someone asked that same question during his presentation for some reason. And he had said the same thing where, you know, the what ifs and all that, and the stuff that kind of Bob talked about.
Yeah,
I think it was Sandy who raised that question.
You're right.
Yeah.
Me, it was probably me.
Or maybe it was you.
Yeah,
But I think,
It was somebody.
it was probably me.
but I think the idea, right? Obviously, it's helping to formulate, you know, the mindset behind the decision upon whether to stay with Rockland Trust or go with Pequot. And I think that is been the challenge. So even internally, like as Bob knows, I mean, we're sitting in on a lot of these meetings, and you know. So first and foremost, as you know, as Brenda had said to me, having this discussion in a document that is in one place is really, really helpful.
So
Bob.
through the chair, Doug?
Yep.
To Christine's question about going back and doing a comparative analysis between Pequot and Rockland Trust, you could do that, but the Pequot example of the 13%, that's using a different investment model.
Yeah, I
That's
was,
the aggressive growth.
Yeah.
And so you have two different, you have an X and Y axis on a financial plane. One is obviously who is the fiduciary, how much do you put into it on an annual basis? And then what is your investment model? So right now, the council directed the fiduciary to do a balanced approach since 2012. And as Treasurer O'Brien talked about, that's an aggressive growth or growth model, if you will. So that, you know, the return would be higher, but you're comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah,
I think to
and
Bob's point, like if you found the equivalent in Rockland Trust, it was 9% versus 13% versus 7% with Rockland Trust. So, I mean,
yeah, and there's a volatility, they call it a volatility index with each of the funds. And, you know, the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror. So I think it's more about, you know, looking ahead to how you want to frame your investment policy and, you know, to what extent, frankly, the relationship that you have versus, you know, setting a new course with another fiduciary.
All right, I'll withdraw my request. I get it.
It was that rear view mirror comment, wasn't it?
Steve,
All
are you
right.
trying to speak? I see Steve. Did you have a question, Stephen?
No, I was not. I'm fine.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good. Thanks, Bob. Sorry.
Okay.
So I guess, I was gonna say, so the next question was gonna be, so next finance meeting, you're gonna present to us like pretty much the final presentation.
I was thinking that this was essentially the final piece of work, and that we could make this, you know, if the committee is okay with this, I can certainly present this to the full board at the January meeting. I think that was what, Mary, we were thinking. But
Was,
if
except
that's
that.
changed, I mean, I'm open.
Well, it
Yeah.
changed slightly because I know Sandra Wright and a couple others who have wanted to weigh in will need to see this presentation. They'll see it by way of the link that was cut from the recording. But the finance committee, through the finance committee, will need to make a recommendation to the full council. So it won't go straight from this meeting to the full council to vote. It would be from a recommendation of the finance meeting. That's the only change. They would, this committee would need to make a recommendation.
All right.
And Mary will be doing that in January?
Yes.
Okay, so the finance committee will make a recommendation in January to present to the whole council at the January meeting.
That is correct. And we'll ask Bob for him to attend that full council meeting. My hope is also the finance meeting in case there's additional questions. So ideally, what I think what we should do, just because this is an important matter, is, you know, maybe some conversation a little bit tomorrow night, just to say this is what it is. Just maybe perhaps if we need to set up some separate meetings. Bob, I know that wasn't included in part of the contractual thing, but if there are separate meetings that someone wants to have independently, we would contract with you to have those conversations. For us to hold another meeting, you know,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
also.
open to that. I'm open to it. Yeah.
So the
Whatever you-
recommendation from this committee is for continual engagement with council members, so they are brought up to speed about the report. Everybody now has a copy of it. We'll give an opportunity to encourage review and questions. Then the January meeting, I will tell you right now what it will be, is it will be January 25th finance meeting. That a recommendation from the finance committee to the full council on the 26th.
Okay.
All right.
But any questions about the process, Mr. Chair? You look perplexed.
No, you were saying the dates, and that's, my house will be finished by then. So those are my move-in date is the 28th. So I don't even know if I'd be able to make that. That was my look of sadness. And
So here's, I think the idea is that, from my perspective, from my role, it would be to make sure that every single council member feels that they're prepared and informed for the decision at that council meeting. So that I think is our role, to making sure that everybody's had the chance to review, to punch some holes through it, ask some questions, and then be prepared for the finance meeting, whether you are there, Mr. Chair, or not. But if certainly your wishes can be relayed through others on this council about which way you would want to go. And I think that all the members should feel good, at least I know I do, about the time we've taken, the process in hiring Bob, and I think he's been an excellent person to come on board and knows who we are, and the importance of having him be put forward. So.
I appreciate that. And again, I thank you for the trust that you put in me, and I learned a lot, so I enjoyed it.
awesome.
And
Thank you very
Charlie-
much, Bob.
If I could, Charlie always has some insight that I'm sometimes forgetting, but Charlie, does that insight and that process seem to work fine? I mean,
Sounds perfect to me, Mary.
All right, guys. Well, have a great night tomorrow. Sounds like a nice time.
You're not going?
I can't. I appreciate it, but
Oh, wow.
Good night, Bob.
all
Yeah,
right.
take
Good
care.
work, Bob. Good
Bye.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.
I think the only item left is just the discussion. It's not for a vote or anything, that staff is continuing to look at financial policies that was previously talked about.
Right.
And did you want to touch upon that?
Me? I'm sorry. Yes. Obviously, just based on the document that Christine sent out, the Topsfield document, it's going to be a pretty extensive document with lots of parts and areas. For the area of the financial control policies, the policies will need to be tailored specifically to us. And we'll need to have a review and approval step, which is the actual control. This is information that I've talked to Russell about. As the fiscal officer, I am going to begin to put together the document that will identify all of the mini OCPC accounting processes that occur on a regular basis. For example, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, bank deposits, just everything that happens. And I will identify the specific controls over them as they now exist. In example, financial reporting monthly, all those reports that we talk about and look at every month. We can then build from there. But for the next meeting, I will have a fairly full document put together on everything that our fiscal department does and what we have in place right now for the controls. And then we'll just build that particular area from there. As far as the rest of the items, I've pulled together a whole bunch of samples of financial policies. And I'm going to go in and look. I haven't had time to look real closely at them. I've just been sort of pulling them together, and I have a whole folder full of them. Nonprofit financial policies. And I will sort of whittle it down to what fits for us and things that obviously have nothing to do with us. And again, we can start from there, looking at, starting to build the components that need to be in our financial policies. And then once we identify all those areas, I'll send it to Russell, and then Russell does have some items that he can guide us on in specific areas, but we need to identify, exactly what's going to go into our policies first. So, but anyway, that gives us a beginning, which I'm gonna grab right on to that and work on putting something together for the next meeting, just as a starting point.
It's a starting point, Brenda, and I think, through Christine's recommendations and, again, OPEB and where we are in the conversations through finance, we're just sharpening our pencils in terms of not just necessarily the numbers, we're talking about where it's the process and openness and the transparency, and that part only makes us a stronger organization and makes it easier for when we're looking for people to become the next treasurer or the next president or the next secretary. So it's all healthy. It does take time, and until we kind of take another closer look at it, it may be something that we may want to even have be done through our bylaw subcommittee, just because there may be some substantive changes to through the board. So once we take a look at that initial, we'll have an update, maybe not necessarily a final for the January meeting, but we definitely will have something beginning of the year in 2022 as to tightening up these financial policies.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Brenda.
if you need a hand with any of that stuff, you can let me know, Brenda. I don't mind helping out. I
Thank you, Doug.
work with finance policies all the time, so.
I'm gonna start with just a skeleton. And
No, yeah, it makes complete sense to just add on or take
Yeah.
off what you don't need. It's fine.
You know what we can do on this one, Brenda and Doug, because of Doug's suggestion as well. Since we have Megan on and she can help us with having a Google Doc that you can both share. We're still working on how are we sharing documents with our board members, like developing a Google Doc that you can look at and Brenda can upload, and at least that's a good way of sharing the information that you might have done.
Perfect. Okay.
That sounds awesome. Hey, one request, can we get a copy of that SERPED investment policy before our January 26th meeting?
Yes,
Just so that we can put some eyes on that?
we'll get that
Awesome.
to you. I know that we have that ourselves here. A lot of the documents that Bob shared, we did accumulate a lot of it, but again, having him put it in one place in one flash drive is also very helpful. So
Awesome.
we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I guess, any other questions or recommendations on any finance policies or anything about today? All right, a motion to adjourn,
I'll second.
call it a night.
And thank you, Frank, for joining us on the phone. You're always, you always hang in there. for
Yeah,
us.
I'm sorry. I had a choice of either coming tomorrow or coming tonight, and I'd rather come tomorrow night.
You come tomorrow night would be great.